What if one of the biggest threats to your kidneys was sitting in your kitchen right now, disguised as something completely normal, something millions of people consume every single day without thinking twice about it? And little by little, year after year, it may quietly place enormous stress on some of the hardest working organs in the human body. Most people never notice the warning signs in the beginning. That's because the kidneys are incredibly silent organs. They continue working quietly in the background for years, even under stress, without causing obvious symptoms. And by the time many people finally realize something is wrong, the body has already been struggling for a very long time. Today, I want to talk to you clearly and simply about several everyday habits that may slowly damage kidney health over time, especially after the age of 50. And I'm going to save the most concerning one for the end, because it's also the most common. Stay with me, because understanding these habits now may help you protect your energy, circulation, blood pressure, and long-term health far more than most people realize. First, let's talk about why the kidneys matter so much. Your kidneys are constantly filtering your blood day and night. They help remove waste products and extra fluid. They also help regulate blood pressure, support healthy red blood cell production, and play an important role in keeping minerals balanced throughout the body. In many ways, they function like an advanced filtration system that never stops running. But here's the problem. As we get older, the kidneys naturally become more sensitive. Just like eyesight changes with age and joints become less flexible, the kidneys also go through wear and tear over the decades. Their filtering ability may gradually slow down, which means they become less tolerant of daily stressors that once seemed harmless. And unfortunately, many adults continue exposing their kidneys to the same harmful habits year after year without realizing the long-term impact. Now let's talk about one of the most overlooked problems of all: a sedentary lifestyle. This may surprise some people because it's not something you eat or drink, it's something you stop doing: movement. Many people spend most of the day sitting, watching television, looking at screens, staying indoors for long periods. And while it may feel harmless, inactivity affects almost every system in the body, including the kidneys. Healthy kidneys depend on healthy circulation. Think of your bloodstream like a flowing river. When water moves properly, everything stays cleaner and healthier. But when water becomes stagnant, problems begin building up. The same thing happens inside the body. Movement helps circulation. It helps the heart pump efficiently and allows blood to reach the kidneys properly. But long periods of inactivity can slow things down and contribute to weight gain, elevated blood sugar, and rising blood pressure. And those issues place additional stress on the kidneys over time. The good news is that you do not need extreme workouts. One of the best things many older adults can do is simply walk consistently. A short daily walk, gentle stretching, standing up more often, moving around the house, light activity after meals. All of these things matter more than people think. Even small amounts of regular movement may support healthier blood flow, better glucose control, and improved overall energy. Now let's move to another very common issue that many people rarely think about: pain relievers. Specifically, frequent use of certain over-the-counter anti-inflammatory medications. Many people take these medications regularly for headaches, joint pain, arthritis, or back discomfort. And because they're easy to buy, people often assume they're completely harmless. But regular overuse may place strain on the kidneys, especially in older adults. Here's a simple way to understand it. The kidneys rely on healthy blood flow to function properly. Certain medications may reduce blood flow to the kidneys when used too often or in high amounts. Occasional use may be fine for many people, but daily dependence without proper medical supervision is where problems can begin. And this becomes especially important after 60, when the kidneys may already be more vulnerable. Now, this does not mean people should ignore pain or avoid necessary medications, not at all. It simply means medications should be used carefully, responsibly, and ideally with guidance from a healthcare professional who understands your overall health picture. Many people are surprised to learn that some cold medicines and combination products also contain hidden anti-inflammatory ingredients. That's why reading labels and discussing long-term medication use with a professional is extremely important. There are also supportive strategies that may help reduce dependence on pain relievers in some situations. Gentle movement, physical therapy, stretching, heat therapy, better sleep, and maintaining a healthy weight. Now let's talk about something hiding in plain sight in nearly every modern kitchen: salt, or more specifically, excess sodium. Most people think the problem only comes from the salt shaker sitting on the table. But surprisingly, the majority of sodium people consume often comes from processed and packaged foods: bread, processed meats, frozen meals, canned soups, sauces, snacks, fast food. Even foods that don't taste particularly salty. Too much sodium may contribute to elevated blood pressure, and high blood pressure is one of the biggest stressors for kidney health over time. Think about the kidneys as delicate filtration systems filled with tiny blood vessels. Constant high pressure places stress on those vessels day after day, and many people never realize how much sodium they're actually consuming until they start reading labels carefully. One simple habit that may help dramatically is cooking more meals at home. When you prepare food yourself, you control the ingredients. Another helpful approach is using more herbs and spices for flavor instead of relying heavily on salt. Garlic, lemon, pepper, rosemary, paprika, turmeric, oregano. These ingredients add flavor naturally without flooding the body with excess sodium. And here's something interesting. After reducing heavily salted foods for several weeks, many people notice their taste buds begin changing. Foods start tasting more natural again, and highly processed foods often become overwhelmingly salty. Now we come to what may be the most damaging everyday habit of all: excess sugar and refined carbohydrates. This includes sugary drinks, desserts, pastries, candy, white bread, heavily processed cereals, and many packaged snacks. And honestly, this may be one of the biggest reasons so many adults struggle with rising blood sugar and metabolic problems later in life. Here's why this matters for the kidneys. When the body is repeatedly flooded with large amounts of sugar and rapidly processed carbohydrates, glucose levels rise quickly. Over time, the body may struggle to manage these repeated spikes efficiently. Eventually, chronically elevated blood sugar may begin affecting blood vessels throughout the body, including the delicate filtering structures inside the kidneys. And the effects don't stop there. High sugar intake may also contribute to weight gain, fat accumulation around organs, inflammation, poor circulation, and elevated blood pressure. Everything becomes connected. This is why so many experts now focus heavily on reducing ultra-processed foods and sugary beverages rather than simply counting calories. One of the most powerful changes many people make is replacing sugary drinks with water, herbal tea, sparkling water with lemon, or unsweetened beverages. Liquid sugar is especially problematic because it enters the bloodstream extremely quickly and often does very little to satisfy hunger. And there's another hidden issue many people overlook: low-fat products. Years ago, people were taught to fear all fats. So food companies removed fat from products but often replaced it with sugar and additives to improve flavor. That's why it's important to read ingredient labels carefully rather than trusting front package marketing. Plain yogurt with fresh fruit is usually a much better option than heavily sweetened flavored yogurt. Whole foods generally support the body far better than highly processed products designed to last for months on store shelves. There's another important point I want you to think about carefully. Many people believe kidney problems appear suddenly, but in reality, the body often sends small signals for years before serious issues develop. Low energy, swollen ankles, changes in urination, persistent fatigue, high blood pressure, poor glucose control. These things are often connected. The challenge is that people become used to feeling a little tired or slower than before, so they ignore what the body may be trying to communicate. And this is exactly why prevention matters so much. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Robert. He was 67 years old, retired, and generally considered himself healthy. He rarely visited doctors because he felt fine most of the time, but his routine looked very similar every single day. Breakfast usually included packaged pastries or white toast with sweet coffee. Lunch often came from frozen meals or processed deli foods because they were convenient. He spent long hours sitting, especially after retirement, and joint discomfort led him to rely on over-the-counter pain relievers several times a week. Again, nothing seemed extreme, but little by little, his blood pressure started creeping upward. His glucose numbers became harder to manage. He felt more tired in the afternoons. His legs occasionally felt swollen at night. At first, he blamed aging. But once he began making small changes, things slowly improved. He started walking after meals. He reduced processed foods. He switched sugary drinks for water. He became more careful with medications, and he focused more on simple homemade meals. Within months, he told me he felt lighter, steadier, and more energetic than he had in years. That's the important lesson here. The body often responds surprisingly well when we remove some of the constant daily stress we place on it. Now, I also want to mention refined flour, because many people only focus on sugar while ignoring highly processed carbohydrates. White bread, pastries, sweet cereals, crackers, cookies, many packaged snacks. These foods are often digested very quickly and may raise glucose levels rapidly in certain individuals. Whole food sources of carbohydrates usually behave very differently because they contain more fiber and nutrients. Things like oats, beans, lentils, vegetables, brown rice, and minimally processed grains. Fiber slows digestion and often helps people feel fuller longer with steadier energy afterward. And honestly, one of the simplest ways to improve eating habits is not obsessing over perfection. Instead, focus on replacing ultra-processed foods little by little with more real food. Real food usually doesn't need a long ingredient list. Now I want to pause for a moment and say something important. This video is not about fear, it's about awareness. Your kidneys work for you every minute of every day without asking for attention. Most of the time, people only begin thinking about kidney health once major problems appear. But daily habits matter far earlier than that. The good news is that even small adjustments may help support better long-term health. Standing up more often, walking daily, reducing heavily processed foods, choosing water more frequently, paying attention to labels, sleeping better, managing stress. These things sound simple because they are simple, but simple does not mean unimportant. In fact, consistency with basic habits often matters far more than complicated health trends people follow for only a few weeks. And here's something else many people overlook. Stress itself may influence the body more than they realize. Chronic stress can affect blood pressure, sleep quality, eating habits, and inflammation levels. That's why creating calmer routines, spending time outdoors, maintaining social connection, and prioritizing rest are also important parts of healthy aging. The body functions best when daily habits support it, rather than constantly overwhelm it. Now, if there's one message I hope you take from this video, it's this. Your future health is shaped quietly by your repeated daily choices. Not by one meal, not by one bad day, not by one mistake, but by patterns repeated over years. And the encouraging part is that patterns can change. You don't need to become perfect overnight. You simply begin with one improvement, one less sugary drink, one extra walk, one healthier breakfast, one earlier bedtime, one more homemade meal. Small steps create momentum, and momentum creates long-term change. If this conversation has been helpful for you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because in the next video, we're going to talk about several common breakfast habits that may quietly increase inflammation and leave many adults feeling tired before noon without understanding why. And trust me, some of these habits are far more common than people realize. Before we finish, I'd love to hear from you. Which habit surprised you the most today? Was it the sugar, the sodium, the lack of movement, or the hidden impact of daily routines people rarely think about? Leave a comment below, because your experience may help someone else too. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Take care of yourself, take care of your health, and remember, the body often responds amazingly well when we finally begin giving it the support it has quietly needed for years.